Thank you very much, Sheikh Rached. We have about maybe 20-25 minutes for questions and answers, as we've done before. If you have a question, please go to the microphone. Please introduce yourself and please be brief so that we give a chance for as many people as possible to ask questions.
My name is Mohammed Shinawi, the Voice of America. Sheikh Ghannouchi, would you explain to us the experience, the Tunisian experience with transitional justice? You have a unique experience in having a consensus among the Tunisian people and organizations of the civil society to agree on the measures of how to transform Tunisia from the dictatorship into a democracy through transitional justice. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Syed Ashraf. I'm the ex-president of the Islamic Society of Baltimore. It is an honor to hear Maulana Ghannouchi. I have a question to him. How is he going to deal with the corruption? I'll quote an example. India is a democracy. There are 740 million registered voters. When the commissioner became a Muslim Quraishi, what he did, he came and declared his assets. And his deputy also declared his assets and conducted the election of 740 million people, in which 70% people voted, and it went very smoothly. So how is he going to deal with the corruption? All his ministers, are they going to declare their assets when they will become in power? Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh Rached. Mohammed Sanusi with the Islamic Society of North America. I would like to say that I was in Tunis just last November. We had a conference on citizenship, religious minorities in the Muslim world, hosted by the government of Tunis to discuss issues of religious minorities in the Muslim world. Sheikh Rached presented a paper on citizenship and rights of minorities. I have seen the society there. I went around Tunisia, and I think the challenges that I think the country is facing is economic development and issues of extremists, the Salafis and others. So you are visiting here in the United States, and what are the expectations? What kind of help that you think United States or what is your appeal basically to the United States and the Muslim world can help the Tunis as a country, and to make sure that the Tunis experience is successful, so that it can set a model for Muslim countries across the globe. Thank you so much.
We'll take three questions at a time, so he can answer three of these, and then we'll take another round.
About the transitional justice, this is a very heavy problem. And during the last year, the government established the Ministry of Justice and Human Rights, Transitional Justice and Human Rights, and take care about the victim of the last of the martyr and the engineers who died or injured during Ben Ali regime or during the revolution. But this research has not yet finished, because the task of the government, this ministry, is to count the victims since the independence, since 56 who have been died, tortured, imprisoned. So the task is very, the burden is very heavy, and the government now start by preparing the project, and the project now in the hands of assembly. So during, since the revolutions until now, what the government has done only to establish the institutions who can deal with this heavy file. And about the problem of corruption, also it's linked with the dictators, the heritage, heavy heritage of Ben Ali and Bourguiba regime. And now the work of the institution have been, which have been established, start to deal with the corrupt of, for example, the businessmen corrupt. There are about 360 businessmen who the government of revolution confiscated their wealth, and now the government start to deal with this file one by one.
But with your regime will be corruption free.
And we start from the beginning. All ministers have been obliged to declare their wealth and their assets of them and their children and family. Do not begin another history of corruption, because corruption can affect all people. What we expect from the United States and from Muslim minority in the United States, what we are doing in Tunisia can constitute, can represent, can give benefit from all, from the West to the West, to the all Muslims in the world. We will not export the revolution, only we can, what we can export, only the model. If we succeed to promote, to establish a model of a new system combined between Islam and new values, the modern values, I think it's benefit from the West to the West and to the all Muslim and this all Muslim in the world. So we expect that this experience has to be helped by all sides, and the experience, Tunisian experience of democracy is supported by the US, by the EU. I think it's a rare opportunity where the common interest between Islam and the West is exist. It's the rare in the history to find another example where the common interest that this experience, the success of this experience is the interest for all sides.
Dr. Basli, President of Al-Mustaqbal Party. Sheikh Rached, personally I went to school, to primary school, for the first time in October '56. So I consider myself a pure product of the independent country of Tunisia. And I grew up within the Bourguiba school, and you were teaching within this school at that time philosophy, Arabic philosophy, as a teacher. And of course, both of us, you were sentenced to death during Bourguiba time. I went to jail for a few months during Bourguiba time. But the Bourguiba had the credit to create a nation, Tunisian nation. My question is, we do grow up with the spirit of being Tunisian before being Arabs or Muslim or Jewish or Christian. This is fundamental. The citizenship, being Tunisian for us, for me at least, is more important than being Arabic or Muslim or any other faith. Is it possible? I know you made a tremendous job, Sheikh Rached, and the credit goes to you that we reached this compromise within this draft of the Constitution. I know what I'm saying. The credit goes to you personally, not to the party or to the coalition. Because you understood that being Tunisian is one of the pillars of the democracy, of the citizenship is one of the pillars of the democracy. There is another pillar, is justice, to create a very, and the last, and for the next urgent thing to do is to build a very clean and a very independent justice. Without independent justice, we cannot go further. This is why, since you did this tremendous job of reaching this compromise with all different parties, and you kept our constitution very safe, and I feel proud, Tunisian, as a Tunisian today, after the 14th of January, to have finally a draft of a constitution which could fit to my expectation and to generation to come. The point is, we want you to be today, Sheikh Ghannouchi, the man of the reconciliation, the man who could bring all Tunisians together to work for the future of Tunisia, and without ignoring that you have to punish those who spoiled the regime, those who spoiled the richness of Tunisia, those who made many incorrect or any injustice during the last, you said, 2 decades during Bourguiba or Ben Ali time. This transitional justice, you spoke about it now, is something that could give the answer of one of your challenges. You said our challenge in Tunisia is the economic and social challenge. The economic and social challenge will be over once we put all Tunisians together to rebuild this country positively, with the rule of law, with the justice, and under the leadership of Nahdha, as it is now the political party who is leading the coalition. Thank you.
My name is David Ernst. I'm a research assistant with the Hudson Institute. My question is there anything the United States can or should do in Tunisia, and in particular in working with other Islamist parties to promote security sector reform? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Joelle Fiss and I work for the US organization Human Rights First. It's a pleasure to listen to you speak. I have 2 questions to ask you. One is about the fact that the Constitution is so consensual and reflects national unity, which is all to your credit, and I congratulate you for that. My first question in regards to that, and there's a lot of talk today about you being the person who can unify Tunisia and bring national unity. In that case, could you explain in a couple of sentences what is the Islamic identity of your party? If you are the person that reunites the Tunisians, then what makes you different? So that is one question. It's a naive question, but I think it's such an important question to understand the identity of your party. Secondly, my question relates to blasphemy, which is something that we work a lot on in our organization. In 2012, there were 5 cases of blasphemy that created a lot of confusion and violence and instability for Tunisians, and also for US-Tunisian relations. For example, the situation of the attack on the US embassy in Tunis. And I would like to, and congratulations for not including blasphemy in the cause, a blasphemy clause in the constitution of all the Tunisians. This is an excellent development. But I would like to ask you, what do you plan to do to ensure in the future that this blasphemy question, which is appearing as a problem since 2012, does not spiral out of control? How do you plan to make sure that freedom of expression still remains an important barometer to measure the democratization of Tunisia and all its political parties? Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we cannot establish a real democracy, which is the main goal of the revolution, and the justice also cannot be done without recognize that this democracy has to be established on the notion of citizenship. All Tunisians are equal. So I think it's this idea is not imported from outside. It's not problem if we also imported, because we are living in a world small village. But as I mentioned, this notion of citizenship is very rooted in our culture, Islamic culture, the heritage of the state of Medina. The heritage contains this notion because all citizens living at the time in Medina are considered as citizens, and one nation constituted part of the Muslim nation. Muslim nation is constituted by Muslim and no-Muslim, because all of them, they participate the land and the system. So this idea of citizenship is very important to consider it as the main pillar of the new system which we are going to establish it. Also, without justice between the fruit of the citizenship, justice, all citizens are equal. We have now heritage of injustice, heritage of 50 years. How we can deal with it? We have to avoid any sort of revenge, because you cannot establish a system on revenge, on hatred. So we have to develop some system of justice, transitional justice, to deal with this heritage. Thousands of our brothers have been tortured. Hundreds of them have been killed. Our brothers who have been tortured, they know who has tortured them, and they could to take by hand the law and go to get rid of with them. But none of our brother has want to his torture and take revenge. Why? Because we are living in a civil society where only the law has to deal with this problem, and the courts have to deal. So I think now in prison there are 7 or 8 persons only from the previous regime are present. But people are with the transitional justice to deal with the tortures. I hope that, and after that, as a party, we have no شكاية no grievance with complaint. We don't complain against anyone, but because this matter is personal matter, and we encourage our brothers to forgive. So the transitional justice made for the reconciliation, not to revenge. Finally, we like to to compromise with our history. We have to have a reconciliation with our history, and the history of the independent is part of our history. But before to reconcile with it, we have to clean the wounds, to clean the wounds before go to the reconciliation. How we can, the system of security is very complicated system, because this system committed crimes during 50 years, and now the government, the system is weak, because accused, the people accuse the police. So we are trying to re-educate the police, and we try to have benefits from the Western experience, retrain them. So United States, the Europe, Turkey now participate in developing our security system, and to re-educate the police in a way that the police has to work within the law. Now many people who have been arrested, Salafis, arrested by the police, in the court, they released them. The court released them because the police has not used to establish a file without using violence. Since the violence stopped to use violence, so he couldn't establish a real file, the proof who can stand up in front of the court. What does mean in Nahdha party the identity? If we are Democrat and we accept human rights, the equality of what has left was in our Islam. Some people consider that Nahdha has no longer Islamic party. We insist that we are Islamic party because we believe in Islam. But some people understand Islam as sort of punishment. So once we believe that the main role of the government not to punish but to give services to the people, so some people consider us, we get rid of Islam. So it's heritage of the decadence. It's heritage where Islam was seen as sets of laws of punishment, hudud. So we have to re-educate people, re-understand Islam. It's name of a book written by Muhammad Iqbal, Rethinking Islam. Yes. So in English, it's translated into English, I think. Well, it translated into Arabic with Rethinking Islam. إعادة التفكير. In English, I don't know which translating from Arabic to we need to rethinking Islam. That Islam is freedom, is justice, human rights, interests of people. This is for that the Prophet have been sent to the earth, not to punish people. About the blasphemy, it seems that complicated notion. I dealt with this notion in my book, Freedom, the Public Freedom in Islamic State, since 1983. And I considered blasphemy is not crime, is not had, is not, so there isn't a punishment, because it's very clear that the freedom of choice, no compulsion in Islam, لا إكراه في الدين, no compulsion. And this notion is repeated in the Quran more than 100 places. The notion of the freedom of belief is very deep notion in the Quran. And it's not only a notion. During the Islamic history, all beliefs have been coexist. You can go to the Iraq, for example, the oldest society, Islamic society. You can find all sorts of beliefs. All minorities. Some of them are not no exist in any other place in the world. Only in Iraq, some minorities. It seems that Iraq is a museum of faith, museum. Who have protect this museum, Islam, the freedom of belief protects this museum. I don't mention what happened at this time in the West, where the war between Catholics and Protestants, and even within the Christianity, the freedom of interpretation is not guaranteed. So we haven't any real problem about the right of the freedom of belief, the freedom of faith. It's personal responsibility, full personal responsibility, direct between you and God. No one can intervene in this matter. The state has no right to intervene in this matter, because the right to judge the actions, not the intention, the beliefs. I think this notion of blasphemy is artificial one. Has linked it in the history, started in context, political context. When the tribal after the prophet died, some tribals rebelled against the state. They don't negate Islam, they negate the state, because this notion of state is very new notion in Arab at the time. They accept, for example, the belief of Islam. They accept Salat, they pray, but they negate Zakat, because the Zakat is phenomena of state. So in their culture, this notion of state is not deepened. So they revolt against. So they considered blasphemy. It's not blasphemy of faith, blasphemy of politics. Any new government, for example, any group of people in any government refuse to pay tax and take weapons to oppose the state, the government. What the government can do? To fight against it, to impose itself. So it's the political problem, not problem of dogma, of belief, religious.
Thank you very much. We have about 5 minutes left, so please, we'll take this last round of questions and please make them as brief as you can.
Fadl Al-Riza, I'm a freelance journalist based in Tunis. You said that part of the solution to the problem of violent Salafism is dialogue with peaceful Salafis. However, in the last few weeks, we have seen police crackdown on Salafis, including peaceful Salafis. And Prime Minister Ali Al-Raid has said that, has used the word terrorist when he's talking about the group Ansar Sharia. So I want to know, are you concerned, are you worried about the breakdown of dialogue with these groups?
Alexander Martin, School of Government, Durham University. Cooperation may occur at governmental level in the National Constituent Assembly, but I haven't seen enough political tolerance at a popular or a grassroots level from both sides for democracy to take hold in Tunisia. Is there anything beyond dialogue that can encourage political tolerance? Thank you.
Ahmed Ahmed with the Minaret of Freedom Institute, and if you'll allow me, I wanted to push you a little further on this question of corruption. You told us what you're doing about corrupt businessmen and something about transparency for the high officials, but I'm concerned about the lower level officials. I read with concern this story about the man who self-immolated himself because of harassment by lower level officials, almost reminiscent of the initial thing that started the Tunisian revolution. And I would like to know what you're going to do about those lower level officials. And if I may offer a suggestion, simplifying the rules so there's less opportunity for such corruption is something you might want to consider. And also, what are you going to do to get an independent but not corrupt judiciary?
I'm Mohammed Asad Hansrod. I'm a high school senior. I have a very basic question. What's your argument, Sheikh Ghannouchi, for the compatibility of the political philosophy of Islamism and secularism? Not the religion of Islam, Islamism and secularism.
Afif Shaban, Tunisian lawyers. As leadership Nahdha, Sheikh Rached, would you like to explain us how Nahdha Party is an Islamic modern party in which we respect the value of human rights? And do you think that your writings are behind the Tunisian modern revolution?
About the Salafist problem, I said Salafis are not one. It's, as other phenomena, is complicated, different. Islamists also are not one, leftists are not, liberal are not one, so the diversity is part of the universe building, the notion of diversity. So no one can succeed to eradicate this law, the law of diversity. Islam recognizes this notion and advise Muslims do not try to eliminate the diversity, because you couldn't reach that, because God's will decide that universe is diverse. So Salafis are not exception. Part of this law, but of this phenomena. So we have not put them into one bag and writing that this is extremism. That's what Ben Ali has done for all Islamists, and Mubarak also. So we have to deal with the reality. The reality is very, very different. Some of Salafists, most of Salafists are peaceful, We have a problem with them in understanding Islam, in their ideas. So it's matter of society, not matter of state. The state has not deal with ideas. The ideas is matter of the society. But the state has to implement the law on all people. Some of Salafis, some of leftists, you can remember that in 60s and 70s of the last century, when the ideas of the left are very spread in the world, some of them in American Latin, some of them they were revolutionaries. In Europe itself, in Germany, the group called Biedermannhof. In France, Action Directe. In Italy, Red Brigades. Even in the revolution of 68, I was there in Paris. The leader of this revolution at the time is Cohen Bandit. Cohen Bandit now is member of the European Parliament. And all these groups, extremist left, all these groups have been re-educated, absorbed by the European democracy and become part of the democracy. Democracy is not a system of rule, of government. It's system also of education. Can educate, re-educate people. So why we believe that Salafists only are expectation, are not exception for this law. In Egypt, for example, during 70 of last century, many hotels have been exploded and many ministers have been killed by jihadists. In Egypt today, no jihadists in Egypt. They have been attracted by the politics and constituted parties. Our Salafists now are living the state of Egypt in the 70s. So the government will re-educate them, the society educate them, and distinguish between who can convince them that they couldn't topple the state through the violence. And some who we believe that most of them they will be convinced and accepting working within the law. Some of them are a minority. They will be hosted by the prisons. We have not only to encourage the coexistence, to accept all fraction in the society and isolate the violence one. But if the state using violence and isolate the society to feel his job, the society has to dialogue with this phenomenon, and the state take only to control the society from the violent one. I think Tunisia in general, the mood of Tunisian are peaceful one. Tunisian culture is peaceful culture. So this phenomena cannot influence the majority of Tunisia. And we didn't see any success made by the violence group. In Pakistan, in Afghanistan, in Egypt, in everywhere, they couldn't crack down on any state. They didn't succeed to change any state or still establish, because this thought couldn't rule the diversity in the society. So they would like to summarize the society into very violent and close group, and they will not succeed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have one more.
One more. Whether my writings affect the revolution, no one can pretend that Tunisia revolution is made by one leader. It's a fruit of our young people who gave us this gift. So our martyrs and our young gave us this, and no one can pretend that this revolution is made by one.